I spoke no English when I went to the residential school. And you got beat up for that.
Mm-hmm.
And you were put in a room, a dark room, and left there for sometimes 2 days, like on the weekend. School was not that important at the residential school. It was everything but an education place. I think I survived mostly because I hung on to my Indianness, and my First Nation flowed through me till I was old enough to know that we weren't being treated like my grandparents sent us, mostly because my grandfather used to take us out in a canoe to go to Nament when the Department of Indian Affairs would come into the harbor looking for children to take them to the residential school, either Alberni or Tefino. And for me, I knew the language till they beat it out of me. They cut my hair, almost shaved my whole head, because I was still speaking the language, because I didn't know any other way to communicate with people that were mistreating me. I would ask them why they were treating me that way, that I hadn't done anything to them. But because they were adults, and my grandparents' teaching was always that you listen to the adults around you.
Mm-hmm.
They're helping you to grow up like you're supposed to. But when I told my grandparents how we were being treated, I didn't tell my mother because she was crying all the time.
Mm-hmm.
She had been through the residential school, and she knew what could happen if we were taken, but she didn't want my grandparents to go to jail for keeping us home. And I'm the oldest of 10, so once you entered the residential school, you weren't allowed to be near your own siblings. And that was heartbreaking in itself, because as First Nations people, the dearest thing we have is family. And if you can't be with your siblings, you almost don't want to exist anymore, because living was being part of that family. And I found out when I was about 14 that my siblings had been sexually abused. They weren't just emotionally and physically abused, they were sexually abused as well. And that was the hardest thing you can get over. Mm-hmm. I've got younger siblings that have not really gotten over it. They get flashbacks, mm-hmm. and it's really hard to watch, because you love your younger brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. And hanging on to my own tradition and the way I was brought up before I went to the residential school is how I survived. I don't know. For a long time, I didn't see it as surviving. We existed after we left the residential school, mm-hmm. with no way of fixing what was happening to us. They would haul us all back, because they had our names, they had numbers for us. We weren't really known by our name. We were just numbers to the staff. And when my grandfather was dying of cancer, he told me, when I was getting close to 14 was the last time I went really grudgingly and refused to go. But my grandfather told me, you learn the white man's way so that you'll understand why they're treating you the way they're treating you, and you'll understand how you can play their game, because this was not our way. The mistreatment of other people was that wasn't taught to us traditionally. You always loved and helped people, didn't matter where they came from. Although my dad said, that gets us into trouble. You can be too kind to people that don't understand kindness. Sharing what you have, giving them and allowing them to be a part of your land. A lot of people just took advantage of that. My dad would say, but my grandparents, because they were our teaching. You listen to grandparents. You listen to mom and dad too, but because they were a product of the residential school, it was kind of a different. But I think it got me through a lot of things